Welcome to Tutorial 5 in the Developing a Computer Game using Visual C#.net. In this fifth tutorial we're going to start on the subject of animation. Any computer game of the kind that we are trying to make, one that is visual and is about an apple dropping from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen and perhaps being caught on the way by a basket, is requiring animation. Let's call it an icon or a sprite. This picture box has to move from where it is to where it shall eventually be deemed to have fallen to the floor and be missed and not caught. A score will go down by 1 off the bottom of the form. So how do we do that? Well, what we need is a control called a timer, because what we need is a timeline and a way of using the internal clock of the computer to time, if you like, the fall of the apple. The timer control has a property called an interval. If we go to Toolbox, we find the timer. It's not in the common controls, nor the containers, menus, and so on. So you'll find it in the components. Double click on that. The timer is not visible. If I double click on it, you'll see that it's got certain properties. If I double click on it, you'll see the event handler for it, which we use to put any code in here that we want to take place to happen at an interval, which is a property of the timer. The interval at the moment is 100 milliseconds, or 1/10 of a second. We can also give it an appropriate name. Appropriate name might be TMR for timer, and we can say apple, because or apple drop, because it's going to be the apple dropping that it's controlling. We've already double clicked that to get the event handler created by the system. We're interested though in what code will go in there. Well, we know that the name of the apple is PB apple, and we know that it's got a left property and a top property. We are interested in its top property because we're not interested in its left property, and it doesn't have a right or a bottom property, so the only other one is top. Now, top, as we saw earlier in the previous tutorial, is really 0 at the top of the form. That's the value of top. If the apple is right at the top, then its top value will be 0, the top of the apple picture box. We would expect to do to this a decrement or an increment. Well, we're going to increase its value so that it goes down the form, and we can use the value of 5 again. It would be good to have an instance variable, as it's called, the same as before, only this time we're going to have it for apple speed. That doesn't seem to make much sense. I'm going to change that to drop speed, because that's what's really being considered, and we can make that 5 as well, and we just leave it, doesn't need a comment. So now we can just say drop speed here. When we come to balance the game, we can just change it at the top, the value. Okay, if we do that, it will go down at 1/10 of a second. It will drop down from the top to the bottom of the playing area. But we need to know when it hits the floor. When will that be? And when it happens, what will we do about it? Well, when it hits the floor, we said we would take away from score 1 mark. Well, what is score's value at the moment? Well, it's nothing, because we don't have a score at the moment. So we need to have a scoring system created if we're going to be dropping this apple with any purpose to gameplay. So what we should do is put an instance variable in here called score, and we make it of type int, and we want it to start off with the value of 0. Now I'm going to actually give it a value here. It's not good object-oriented practice, but it will do for our purposes. So if I give it a value of 0 there, it will decrease or increase according to what happens with the apple, whether it's collected or missed, caught or missed. So when will we know if the apple has been caught? Well, if we need an if statement with some condition, and what's that condition? We might like to pause the recording and anticipate what it could be. So when we run this code, we find the apple falls and then drops again, and does this eternally. The score is changing in the background, and indeed, because it is if you look at the program code, we should be stopping the deduction of the score as soon as the apple top is reset to 0 to fall back off the tree. In the next tutorial we will cover the issue of collision with the basket.